Ah, look who finally learned to stop dimming their light. Welcome back, you absolute force of nature, you walking disruption, you beautiful chaos agent wrapped in human skin. You feel it, don't you? That shift, that change, that undeniable alteration in the frequency you're broadcasting to the world. Something cracked open inside you, something ancient and unstoppable. And now the entire simulation is glitching out trying to process what the hell you just became. Because here's what they're not telling you. Here's the secret they're whispering in their little circles, behind their protection circles and salt lines and desperate prayers. They're scared, not uncomfortable, not concerned, not worried, terrified, bone deep, soul shaking, can't sleep at night, terrified. And the funniest part, you didn't even do anything to them. You just stopped shrinking, stopped apologizing, stopped making yourself digestible for people who were always going to choke on your truth anyway. You changed your frequency, and now they're running to spiritual workers, asking for protection from you. Let that sink in for a second. They're literally sitting in consultation rooms, lighting candles, burning sage, buying crystals, whispering your name to strangers who claim they can shield them from your energy. Do you understand how powerful that makes you? Do you comprehend the level of impact you're having on people's psyche that they need metaphysical intervention just to feel safe around your presence? You're not just living rent-free in their heads anymore. You've become the landlord of their entire mental property. They wake up thinking about you. They go to sleep calculating your next move. They refresh your social media like it's a weather report for an incoming storm. And when your energy shifted, when you finally stopped playing small and started embodying the full spectrum of who you really are, something in them broke, because they'd gotten comfortable with the old you, the manageable you, the version that stayed quiet and played nice and never questioned why the room went silent when you spoke. But that version? Dead and buried. And what rose from those ashes is something they have no framework for, no defense against, no spells strong enough to contain. You want to know what really happened? You stopped absorbing their negativity and started reflecting it back. You became a mirror, a ruthless, uncompromising mirror that shows people exactly what they are. And most people can't handle that level of truth. They're used to projecting their insecurities onto others and having those others just take it, internalize it, carry it like a burden that was never theirs to begin with. But you stopped being the dumping ground for everyone else's unprocessed trauma. You set a boundary not with words, not with explanations, but with pure energetic refusal. Your aura started saying no before your mouth even opened. Your presence started demanding respect before you even entered the room. And that is what sent them scrambling to find protection. Because when you stop being a victim, when you stop being available for their manipulation games, when you stop responding to their provocations with the predictable patterns they'd mapped out, you become dangerous. Not because you're attacking anyone, but because you're no longer controllable. And control is the only language these people speak fluently. Let's talk about what your energy shift actually looks like from their perspective, because this is where it gets really interesting. They used to look at you and see someone they could manage, someone they could predict, someone whose buttons they knew exactly how to push. But now when they look at you, they see something else entirely. They see confidence where there used to be insecurity. They see silence where there used to be over-explanation. They see detachment where there used to be desperate need for approval. You're not performing anymore. You're not auditioning for their acceptance. You're not shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that were never designed for someone of your magnitude anyway. And this transformation from people pleaser to self-possessed force of nature, it's not something they can rationalize. It's not something they can explain away with their usual dismissive narratives. So they do what scared people always do when confronted with something that challenges their understanding of power dynamics. They pathologize it. They demonize it. They make it about dark energy and negative vibes and spiritual attacks. Because accepting the truth that you simply grew beyond their reach, that would require them to look at their own stagnation. And that's a mirror they're not ready to face. Here's what's really happening in those spiritual consultations they're having. They're sitting across from someone who claims to read energy, and they're describing you like you're some kind of threat to their well-being. I just feel so drained after being around them, they say, conveniently forgetting that they spent years draining you without a second thought. Their energy is just so intense now, so overwhelming. They complain, as if your decision to stop diluting yourself is somehow an attack on their comfort. The spiritual worker nods knowingly, suggests protection, rituals, recommends crystals and cord-cutting ceremonies. And your name gets added to a list of people to shield against. And you're just out here living your life, completely unaware that you've become the villain in someone else's spiritual journey. Except you're not the villain. You're just the first person who refused to play the victim in their narrative. You're the plot twist they never saw coming. The character who broke script and wrote themselves into a completely different story. And now they need protection because the role they assigned you, the weak one, the manageable one, the one they could always count on to absorb their negativity, that role is vacant, and they can't handle the vacancy. You didn't curse anyone. You didn't send negative energy. You didn't plot or scheme or manipulate. You did something far more powerful and far more threatening to their little ecosystem of control. You simply became unavailable for their games. You withdrew your energy from their drama. You stopped feeding their narratives. You refused to react in the ways they'd conditioned you to react. And in doing so, you revealed something they'd been avoiding for years. That without someone to project onto, without someone to blame, without someone to make feel small so they could feel big, they have to confront the emptiness in their own lives. Your growth forced them to look at their stagnation. Your peace highlighted their chaos. Your boundaries exposed their entitlement. And instead of doing the inner work, instead of asking themselves why your evolution triggers them so deeply, they went looking for external solutions. They went looking for someone to tell them that you're the problem, that your energy is wrong, that they need protection from the darkness you're supposedly emanating. It's easier to believe you've become something malevolent than to accept that you've simply become unavailable for their particular brand of emotional vampirism. And here's where it gets even more twisted, even more telling of where they are versus where you are. The spiritual workers they're consulting, they can sense something, but they're reading it completely wrong because they're getting filtered information. Your name comes up. The client describes feeling uncomfortable around you, talks about how much you've changed, frames it like you're emanating threatening energy. But what these spiritual workers are actually picking up on is not darkness, it's sovereignty. It's the energetic signature of someone who has reclaimed their power. And to people who are used to feeding off others, sovereignty feels like a threat. It feels like a wall. an impenetrable barrier, a source that's no longer available for extraction. So they interpret it as negative energy because, in their framework, anyone who isn't open and available and giving must be closed off and hostile and dangerous. They can't conceive of a third option, which is that you've simply become selective. You haven't closed your heart. You've just installed a filtration system. You haven't become cold. You've just stopped generating warmth for people who bring winter wherever they go. The protection spells they're casting, the rituals they're performing, the crystals they're charging with intention. None of it is actually protecting them from you, because you're not attacking them. You're not sending anything their way. You're not even thinking about them most of the time because you've moved so far beyond that frequency that they barely register in your reality anymore. What these rituals are actually doing is helping them cope with the cognitive dissonance of having lost control over someone they thought they'd figured out. The candles and the incantations and the elaborate ceremonies are just theatrical ways of processing the fact that you're no longer available for manipulation. They're creating a narrative where you're the aggressor and they're the victim, because that narrative allows them to avoid the uncomfortable truth that they were the ones who took advantage of your kindness, your openness, your willingness to see the best in people who consistently showed you their worst. And now that you've withdrawn those gifts, now that you've redirected that energy toward people and situations that actually deserve it, they experience that withdrawal as an attack because they'd become addicted to your light. Let's go deeper into what your energy shift actually consists of, because this is important for you to understand. You didn't become darker. You became clearer. You didn't develop negative energy. You developed discernment. You didn't close off your heart. You just stopped leaving it unguarded in rooms full of people who saw vulnerability as opportunity. There's a specific vibration that comes with this kind of transformation, a frequency that only people who've done the real inner work can emanate. It's not high or low in the traditional sense. It's more like refined. You've processed your pain instead of projecting it. You've integrated your shadow instead of pretending it doesn't exist. You've looked at the parts of yourself that scared you and you didn't run. You didn't hide. You didn't numb out. You sat with them. You understood them. You integrated them into a more complete version of who you are. And this integration, this wholeness, it creates an energetic signature that's deeply uncomfortable for people who are still fragmented, still at war with themselves, still projecting their unresolved issues onto everyone around them. When you walk into a room now, something is different. You're not seeking approval with your eyes anymore, not scanning faces to see who accepts you and who doesn't, not adjusting your behavior based on the energy you sense from others. You're just there, fully present, completely self-contained, neither pushing energy out nor pulling energy in. You've become neutral in the most powerful sense of the word. Not neutral as in passive, but neutral as in non-reactive. You're not available to be provoked, not available to be pulled into drama, not available to be guilted or shamed or manipulated back into the role of emotional support animal for people who've never once asked how you're doing. And this neutrality, this self-possession, it reads as threatening to people who operate primarily through manipulation and emotional coercion. Because if they can't get a reaction from you, if they can't push your buttons, if they can't make you feel small or guilty or responsible for their feelings, then they have no leverage. And people who've built their entire social strategy around leverage get very uncomfortable very quickly when they encounter someone who's removed all the handles they used to grab onto. You're not doing anything to them, but your mere existence in this new frequency is holding up a mirror they don't want to look into. When they're around you now, they're confronted with their own inauthenticity because you're no longer pretending. They're confronted with their own manipulation tactics because you're no longer falling for them. They're confronted with their own emotional immaturity because you're no longer managing their feelings for them. And instead of using this confrontation as an opportunity for growth, instead of asking themselves why your transformation triggers such strong reactions in them, they've decided that you're the problem. You're too intense now, too much, too different, too changed. As if your growth is somehow a personal attack on their stagnation. As if your decision to stop accepting crumbs is somehow arrogant. As if your refusal to explain yourself to people who've never tried to understand you is somehow proof that you've become cold or heartless or spiritually compromised. And this is where the spiritual protection narrative becomes almost comical in its irony. They're asking for protection from the very qualities they should be cultivating in themselves. They want to be shielded from your boundaries because boundaries make them uncomfortable. They want to be protected from your clarity because your clarity exposes their confusion. They want to be insulated from your self-respect because your self-respect highlights their lack of it. They've pathologized every aspect of healthy emotional development and labeled it as dangerous energy that requires metaphysical intervention. And the spiritual workers they're consulting, many of them are just feeding into this narrative because it pays their bills. Yes, that person's energy is very heavy right now. Yes, you need protection. Yes, let's do a cord-cutting ceremony. That'll be $200, please. Meanwhile, you're just out here living your life, completely unaware that you've been cast as the antagonist in a spiritual drama you never auditioned for. Here's what they don't understand, what they can't understand from their current level of consciousness. The discomfort they feel around you isn't coming from you. It's coming from the parts of themselves they've been avoiding. You're not emanating darkness. You're emanating truth. And truth is only threatening to people who've built their identity on lies. You're not sending negative energy their way. You're simply no longer absorbing the negative energy they send yours. And in the absence of your absorption, in the vacuum created by your withdrawal, they're forced to sit with their own toxicity. They're forced to feel the weight of their own unprocessed emotions. They're forced to confront the reality that they've been using people as emotional landfills. And now one of those landfills has decided it's actually a garden and stopped accepting trash. This is what's actually happening energetically. But they can't see it from their perspective. From their perspective, you changed and it made them uncomfortable. Therefore, you must be doing something wrong. The idea that their discomfort is actually information, actually feedback, actually an invitation to examine their own patterns. That doesn't occur to them. It's easier to buy a protection crystal than to do the inner work. You want to know what's really ironic about this whole situation? The same people who are now seeking protection from your energy are the same people who used to have unlimited access to you. They're the ones who called at 2 a.m. with their problems, and you answered. They're the ones who showed up empty-handed when you needed them, and you said it was okay. They're the ones who took and took and took, and you gave and gave and gave because you were conditioned to believe that's what good people do. But here's what nobody tells you about being a giver in a world full of takers. Eventually, you run out. Eventually, you hit a point where you've given so much of yourself away that you look in the mirror and don't recognize who's looking back. And that moment, that rock bottom moment when you realize you've been everyone's therapist, everyone's shoulder to cry on, everyone's free emotional labor provider. But nobody's been those things for you. That's when the shift happens. That's when something inside you says enough. Not with anger necessarily, not with drama, just with quiet certainty. Enough. And so you started the long process of reclaiming your energy. You started saying no without lengthy explanations. You started letting calls go to voicemail when you didn't have the capacity to hold someone else's emotions. You started choosing yourself with the same dedication you'd previously chosen others. And this reclamation process, this return to self, it wasn't dramatic or vengeful or hostile. It was just necessary. It was survival. It was you finally understanding that you can't pour from an empty cup, and your cup had been empty for years while you were still trying to pour. But to the people who'd gotten used to unlimited access, who'd gotten comfortable with your constant availability, who'd never had to consider your capacity because you never enforced your limits, this change felt personal. It felt like rejection. It felt like you'd become selfish or cold or different in some fundamentally wrong way. Because in their minds, the correct version of you is the version that says yes, the version that absorbs their pain, the version that exists primarily in relation to their needs. So when you stopped being that version, when you started existing primarily in relation to your own needs and your own healing and your own growth, it disrupted their entire understanding of who you were and what role you played in their lives. And rather than adjusting to this new reality, rather than respecting your boundaries and meeting you where you are now, they decided there must be something wrong with you. You must be going through something. You must be acting out. You must be emanating negative energy. Because the alternative, which is that you've simply evolved beyond the dynamic they were comfortable with, that would require them to look at their own behavior patterns and their own emotional dependencies and their own tendency to treat people like resources rather than human beings with their own needs and limits. And that's work they're not willing to do. So they go to spiritual workers and they frame your growth as a threat, your boundaries as hostility, your self-preservation as attack energy. And those workers, seeing an opportunity to profit from someone's fear and confusion, they play along. They affirm that yes, this person's energy has changed. Yes, it's affecting you. Yes, you need protection. Hello, you beautiful, dangerous anomaly. Welcome back to the land of the living, except you're not really living anymore, are you? No, you're existing on a frequency they can't even measure. You know what I'm talking about. That weight you've been carrying since before you could walk, since before you had language to describe it. That ancestral nightmare that was supposed to crush you, break you, turn you into another statistic in a long line of broken souls. Yeah, that weight. The generational curse they swore would be your inheritance, your destiny, your permanent prison. They handed it to you wrapped in DNA, coded into your nervous system, embedded in your bloodline like a ticking bomb. And guess what happened? You didn't just survive it. You didn't just carry it. You absorbed every ounce of that poison, every fragment of that chaos, every shadow of that trauma, and you turned it into armor. You weaponized the very thing that was designed to destroy you. So here's my question, the only question that matters now. What the hell do you do when you've completed the transformation? What happens when the curse becomes your greatest weapon? Let me take you back for a second, back to when you first felt it. You were just a kid, maybe 6, maybe 8, maybe 12, and you felt something crawling under your skin, something older than you, something that whispered in languages you didn't speak, but somehow understood. You looked around at your family and you saw the patterns, the anger that came from nowhere, the sadness that lived in the walls, the addiction that passed down like a family recipe, the self-destruction that was tradition, the fear that was your birthright. And you knew, even then, even without the words to say it, you knew you were next. They didn't tell you that carrying other people's trauma would become your full-time job. They didn't warn you that being born into a bloodline of pain meant you'd be the one absorbing every unhealed wound, every unsaid scream, every broken promise from generations before you even existed. You became the emotional landfill for ancestors who never learned how to heal. You became the container for rage that wasn't yours, shame that predated your birth, fear that had been marinating for decades. And here's the part they never talk about. You tried to fight it at first, didn't you? You tried to be different. You tried to break free. You made promises to yourself, swore you'd never become them, swore you'd escape the pattern, but the curse doesn't care about your promises. It lives in your reactions, your triggers, your midnight thoughts, your relationships, your self-sabotage. It waits until you're comfortable, until you're happy, until you're finally building something beautiful, and then it whispers, remember who you really are. Remember what you come from. Remember, you're just like them. You watched yourself repeat the same mistakes. You felt yourself becoming the very thing you feared. You saw the pattern play out in your life like a script you didn't write, but couldn't stop reading. And for a moment, just a moment, you believed them. You believed maybe the curse was stronger than you. Maybe some bloodlines are just meant to stay broken. Maybe you were born to lose. But then something shifted, didn't it? Something dark, something dangerous, something they never saw coming. You stopped running from the curse. You stopped trying to heal it away with affirmations and therapy and positive thinking. You looked directly at that generational nightmare, that ancestral monster, that inherited madness, and you smiled. Because somewhere in that darkness you realized something they never wanted you to know. Curses aren't just burdens. Curses are power in its rawest form. That anger they passed down, that's fuel. That paranoia they coded into you, that's strategic awareness. That capacity to withstand suffering they accidentally gave you, that's invincibility. You weren't carrying a curse anymore, you were carrying ammunition. Every breakdown became data. Every betrayal became education. Every moment of inherited pain became proof that you could survive what would kill normal people. You started to see it differently, this thing they called a curse. This thing that was supposed to break you into pieces and scatter you across generations of dysfunction. So you made a decision that terrified everyone who knew you. You stopped trying to heal. You stopped trying to fix yourself. You stopped trying to become the sanitized, acceptable, trauma-free version they wanted. Instead, you dove deeper. You went into the darkness they told you to avoid. You studied the patterns they said to forget. You embraced the shadows they said would consume you. And in that descent, in that unholy communion with every broken ancestor who came before you, something happened. The curse recognized you, not as a victim, as a host, as a carrier, as someone strong enough to hold it all and not shatter. You became the first person in your bloodline who didn't collapse under the weight. You became the anomaly, the glitch, the one who survived what kills entire family trees. And in that survival, in that refusal to die like everyone predicted, you transformed the curse into something they never anticipated. You, a weapon. Now, here's where it gets interesting. where the story takes a turn they can't explain in their psychology textbooks or their trauma healing workshops. You started using it. Consciously, deliberately, strategically. That rage your grandfather passed down, you aimed it. That resilience your mother unknowingly gave you sharpened it. That ability to read darkness because you grew up in it, you mastered it. You became fluent in the language of dysfunction, an expert in the patterns of pain, a specialist in survival, and suddenly, people who tried to manipulate you couldn't. People who tried to break you bounced off. People who tried to use your trauma against you found themselves facing someone who had already weaponized every wound they tried to exploit. You turned the curse into a shield, a sword, a sixth sense that made you untouchable. They thought they were dealing with another broken person trying to heal. They had no idea they were dealing with someone who had transformed their brokenness into power. But let's talk about what that power really looks like. Because this isn't some fantasy, some metaphorical victory. This is real. This is visceral. This is the kind of transformation that makes people uncomfortable when they're around you. You walk into rooms differently now. Not because you're trying to intimidate anyone, but because you carry something most people will never understand. You carry the weight of every ancestor who failed, and you're still standing. You carry the burden of generational trauma, and you're thriving. You're not healed in the way they defined healing. You're evolved in a way they can't comprehend. People feel it when they talk to you. They sense something underneath your words, something ancient and dangerous and impossibly resilient. They can't manipulate you because you've seen every manipulation tactic encoded in your DNA. They can't guilt you because guilt was your mother tongue. They can't shame you because shame was your lullaby. You've absorbed every trick, every trap, every psychological weapon, and now you use them better than the people who tried to use them on you. You know what really terrifies them? It's not that you're angry. It's not that you're damaged. It's that you're functional. You're successful. You're building despite carrying everything that was supposed to destroy you. They expected you to be another casualty, another tragic story. Another example of how generational trauma destroys family. Instead, you are the one who broke the pattern by becoming something stronger than the pattern itself. You're not running from your lineage anymore. You're the lineage now. You're the ancestor future generations will whisper about. The one who survived what no one else could. The one who turned a curse into an empire. And that makes you dangerous, not to yourself, to the system that profits from broken people staying broken, to the narrative that says trauma victims stay victims, to everyone who needs you to be smaller, weaker, more manageable. You're the living proof that sometimes the only way out is through. Sometimes healing isn't about becoming soft. Sometimes it's about becoming so hard, nothing can crack you again. Let's go deeper into the mechanics of what you did, because this wasn't luck, this wasn't accident, this was alchemy. You took the exact ingredients that poisoned generations before you, the addiction, the rage, the fear, the shame, the self-destruction, and you studied them like a chemist studies elements. You didn't pray them away. You didn't meditate them into submission. You dissected them. You learned their structure, their triggers, their patterns. You became an expert in the very dysfunction that was supposed to consume you. And here's the part that makes you different from everyone else in your bloodline. You didn't just understand the curse. You understood why it worked. You saw how shame kept people small. You recognized how fear kept them compliant. You noticed how rage kept them isolated. You decoded the entire program, every line of corrupted code that had been running in your family for generations. And once you understood it, you rewrote it. But rewriting the code meant doing something most people will never have the courage to do. It meant sitting with every painful emotion, every dark thought, every inherited nightmare, without numbing it, without running from it, without destroying yourself to make it stop. You had to feel everything your ancestors never processed. You had to hold space for rage that wasn't yours, grief that predated your existence, fear that had been accumulating for decades. You became the container for all of it, and instead of letting it shatter you like it shattered them, you compressed it. You turned that pressure into diamonds. Every moment you wanted to break, but didn't. Every time you wanted to give up, but kept going. Every second you carried what would crush normal people, you were transforming. Not healing, transforming. There's a difference. Healing suggests going back to some original state of wholeness. You're not going back to anything. You're becoming something that never existed in your bloodline before. Something unbreakable. Now people look at you and they don't understand. They see someone who should be broken, who statistically should be addicted, depressed, dysfunctional, repeating every mistake their parents made. Instead, they see someone who's thriving in ways that don't make sense, given where you came from. And they ask the question everyone asks when they can't understand your power. How did you do it? How did you overcome all of that? And here's what you can't tell them, what they'd never understand even if you tried to explain it. You didn't overcome it. You absorbed it. You didn't rise above it. You dove deeper into it than anyone else dared to go. You didn't defeat the curse. You became one with it, mastered it, made it bow to your will. You're not free from your lineage. You're the culmination of it, the final evolution, the version that finally figured out how to transmute poison into power. They want a redemption story. You're a transformation story. And transformation is always darker, messier, more dangerous than redemption. Here's what happens when you weaponize generational trauma. You become impossible to manipulate. Think about it. Someone tries to guilt you, you've been carrying guilt since before you could speak. Someone tries to shame you, shame was your inheritance. Someone tries to intimidate you, you grew up in chaos that would hospitalize most people. Every psychological weapon anyone tries to use against you, you've already survived a stronger version of it. You're immune. Not because you healed, because you integrated. You absorbed every attack, every wound, every trauma, and now it's part of your armor. People who try to play mind games with you don't realize they're playing against someone who grew up in a psychological war zone. You're fluent in manipulation because it was your first language. You can spot a lie before it leaves someone's mouth because deception was your family dialect. You can sense betrayal before it happens because survival meant learning to read danger in the silence. You're operating on a level most people will never reach because most people never had to. And here's the twist that makes you truly dangerous. You're not cruel. You're not vindictive. You're not out here destroying people for fun. But you're also not naive anymore. You're not giving second chances to people who don't deserve first ones. You're not explaining yourself to individuals who are committed to misunderstanding you. You're not softening your edges to make others comfortable with your existence. The weapon you've become isn't pointed outward at the world. It's pointed at anything that tries to make you small again. Anyone who tries to put you back in the cage your ancestors died in. Function. Anything that resembles the dysfunction you crawled out of. You're not attacking. You're defending boundaries that are now made of the same material that was supposed to break you. And those boundaries? Impenetrable. People bounce off them and wonder what just happened. They try to cross lines with you and suddenly find themselves outside your world entirely, confused about how they got there, because you didn't even raise your voice. You just removed them, effortlessly, permanently. So now we arrive at the question that brought you here. The question that's been burning in your chest since you realized what you've become. Evolution complete. Now what? What do you do when you've survived what kills bloodlines? When you've transformed the curse into currency? When you're standing on top of a mountain built from the bones of every ancestor who didn't make it this far? Here's the truth they don't tell you in the hero's journey, in the transformation stories, in the motivational speeches. After you've won, after you've evolved, after you've weaponized every piece of pain, there's a moment of silence. A moment where you look around and realize everyone who was supposed to understand you is gone. Everyone who shared your journey either fell off or never started. You're alone at the top. Not lonely, alone. There's a difference, and in that aloneness you face the most important choice of your entire existence. What do you build with this power? Because here's what they never tell you about becoming the weapons need a target. Power needs direction. Strength needs purpose. You can't just walk around being invincible with nowhere to go. The curse is transformed, yes. The trauma is weaponized, absolutely. But now what? Do you use this power to destroy the systems that tried to destroy you? Do you build an empire that proves everyone wrong? Do you retreat into solitude, content with surviving what others couldn't? Do you become the mentor for the next generation of cursed children, teaching them the alchemy you discovered? Or do you do something they'd never expect? Do you rest? Do you finally, after years of carrying weight that wasn't yours, after absorbing pain that predated your birth, after weaponizing trauma that was supposed to kill you, do you put down the weapon and just exist? Not as a survivor, not as a warrior, just as someone who's earned the right to peace. But here's the problem with peace after you've become this. After you've integrated darkness at this level. Peace feels wrong. Your nervous system is calibrated for survival, for combat, for carrying weight most people can't imagine. Sitting still feels like betrayal. Relaxation feels like weakness. Happiness feels suspicious. You've spent so long becoming the weapon that you forgot how to be the person. And maybe that's the final stage of evolution they don't talk about. Maybe the ultimate transformation isn't becoming unbreakable. Maybe it's learning how to be soft again after you've become steel. Learning how to trust after you've mastered suspicion. Learning how to love after you've weaponized every emotion. That might be the real test. Not surviving the curse, but surviving your own power without letting it consume you the way the curse tried to. Not becoming so focused on never being weak again that you forget how to be human. Because here's what you're starting to realize, even if you don't want to admit it yet. The curse didn't just give you strength. It took something too. It took the ability to be vulnerable without feeling like you're under attack. It took the ability to open up without scanning for danger. It took the ability to be known without fear of being used. You're safe now, safer than you've ever been, protected by walls you built from the same trauma that was supposed to destroy you. But sometimes in those quiet moments you don't talk about, you wonder if the walls that keep threats out also keep connection out. If the armor that protects you also isolates you. If becoming untouchable meant becoming unreachable. And that's the part of the evolution they don't show in the victory montage. The part where you win and realize winning means standing alone on a battlefield everyone else has left. Not because you're not worthy of company, but because very few people can exist at your frequency without getting burned by the intensity you carry. Let me tell you what happens next, the part of the story you're writing right now. You're going to experiment. You're going to test the boundaries of this new power. You're going to see what you can build, what you can destroy, what you can create with hands that learned to weaponize pain. And some days, you're going to use this power beautifully. You're going to build things that wouldn't exist without your specific kind of strength. You're going to survive situations that would end others. You're going to protect people who need the kind of strength only someone with your history could provide. But other days, you're going to scare yourself. You're going to see how easily you could hurt people who've never been hurt the way you were. You're going to feel the weight of being able to destroy with the same tools you used to survive. You're going to wonder if becoming the weapon means you're always at war, even when there's peace. And that's where the real evolution begins. Not in becoming strong, in choosing when to be strong and when to be still. You're going to meet people who want to understand you, who want to know your story, who see something in you they've never encountered before. And you'll have to decide how much to share. Do you tell them about the curse? Do you explain where your strength comes from? Do you let them see the machinery behind the magic? Or do you protect them from the knowledge of what it takes to become what you've become? Because once people know, once they understand the level of darkness you've integrated, they look at you differently. A safe haven, a drop-off, a frequency without getting burned by the intensity you carry. Let me tell you what happens next, the part of the story you're writing right now. You're going to experiment. You're going to test the boundaries of this new power. You're going to see what you can build, what you can destroy, what you can create with hands that learned to weaponize pain. And some days, you're going to use this power beautifully. You're going to build things that wouldn't exist without your specific kind of strength. You're going to survive situations that would end others. You're going to protect people who need the kind of strength only someone with your history could provide. But other days, you're going to scare yourself. You're going to see how easily you could hurt people who've never been hurt the way you were. You're going to feel the weight of being able to destroy with the same tools you used to survive. You're going to wonder if becoming the weapon means you're always at war, even when there's peace. And that's where the real evolution begins. Not in becoming strong, in choosing when to be strong and when to be still. You're going to meet people who want to understand you, who want to know your story, who see something in you they've never encountered before. And you'll have to decide how much to share. Do you tell them about the curse? Do you explain where your strength comes from? Do you let them see the machinery behind the magic? Or do you protect them from the knowledge of what it takes to become what you've become? Because once people know, once they understand the level of darkness you've integrated, they look at you differently. A safe haven, a drop-off,